Good afternoon.
Hello.
We will get started in about 3 minutes. I'm going to give a few more board members time to connect. Thank you for your patience.
Okay, I can't hear anyone. Anyone talking?
Yes, we can hear you. We're just waiting for a few more board members to arrive.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank
No
you very
problem.
much.
No
It was
problem.
silent, so I was like, oh my God, my computer isn't working.
Hi, Mike. Thanks for joining. Appreciate you.
Hi, Joe. My pleasure.
Text a few more board members. I think,
Yeah.
but we have three.
Yeah, so I think we're going to get started, and they can, introduce themselves as they come in. Um, Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Francoise Darastel Ledger, and I am chair of the Teaching and Learning Committee. And this is the Teaching and Learning Committee meeting for Hartford Public Schools. And I'd like to popcorn it off to different folks so that everyone who's in the room knows who everyone is. So I will popcorn it off just to introduce yourself and your role. And I will start with Corinne Barney.
Thanks, Member Darcel Ledger. Corinne Barney, I'm the Chief of Schools. Nice to see everybody. And I will pass it off to Dr. Torres Hill.
Thank you, Chief Barney. Hello, everyone. I'm Daisy Torres Hill. I am the Assistant Superintendent for Teaching and Learning. It's a pleasure to be here and see everyone. I will pass that over to Principal Fitzgerald.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Jessica Fitzgerald, principal at Great Path Academy at CT State Manchester. And I will pass it over to Heidi Schmidt.
Good evening, everyone. Heidi Schmidt, Director of Athletics. And I will popcorn that one over to Joanne Tremblay Jackson.
Thank you, Heidi. And I'm Joanne Tremblay Jackson. I'm the Director of Student Support Services, and I'll pass it on to Michael McGuire.
Everybody, thank you for having me. I'm Mike McGuire, and I am the Director of School Support for Domus, and we are the contractor for Hartford Public Schools at the Hartford Juvenile Detention Center, and I oversee that facility. I don't know who to pass it on to, so Joanne, just pass it to someone else for me, please. Thank you.
Okay, I'll pass it on to Tracy Avicoli.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tracy Avicoli. I'm the director, the Director of Secondary Teaching and Learning, and I will pass it over to Board Member Tatum.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Stephen Tatum. I'm a board member, and I'll pass it over to, how about Jennifer Hoffman? Or is,
Hi, everyone.
yes.
Hi, everyone. Jen Hoffman, Assistant Superintendent for Special Education and Pupil Services for the district. It's nice to see everyone. I believe Dr. Ratley's on the call.
Yes, good evening. Connie Ratley, Deputy Superintendent for Schools and Academics. We'll pass it on to Board Member Wilson.
Good afternoon, everyone. Stephen Wilson, board member. I believe I'm the last one. If you haven't gone yet, please step up to the front.
I think I'm the last one. Jen Hockenhall. Good to see everybody. I'm a board member with Hartford Public Schools. With that, I'll turn it back over to Chair Daristelle Ledger.
Thank you so much, and welcome everyone once again. Let's see, Christina, can you please put up the agenda? Thank you so much. And our first item on the agenda is contract approval, Negros Climbing Wall, and I will pass that on to Corinne Barney, Chief Barney.
Thank you so much. There we go. All right. So thank you so much for having us. We are here today to bring you a contract with Negros for a climbing wall that would be located at Great Path on the Manchester Community College campus. Next slide. Just naming that this is really connected to student connectedness to school and engagement within the community. Next slide. The climbing wall is going to be funded through the Interdistrict Magnet Athletic Grant, which is a part of the Chef Agreement and given to magnet schools within the Hartford Public Schools. And the contract amount is for $120,500. Next slide. The strategic goals of the climbing wall, there's two particular that just really wanted to lift and highlight, would be the program development and implementation. So there would be curriculum, there's training, coaching, instructor recruitment, there's a formal team formation and tryouts. Students at Great Path are already utilizing and have a climbing experience. They just do not have a wall on their campus currently. They're using a gym out of, I believe, Glastonbury to support the athletic club at this time. Then they are also looking at the competitive readiness and the league participation. So really the connection between the state and national organizations. They have a competitive schedule and they train and they condition the students around rock climbing as an athletic sport. The climbing wall also focuses on equity inclusion, community engagement, as well as long-term sustainability and growth. So instead of having to utilize a facility off campus, they would have one right on site. And then it would also enhance the competitive experience that the students have. Next slide. So the contract will include the wall design and engineering. And so the wall itself is panels that are constructed offsite and then brought to the school and installed within the current gym. They will be securely installed that's a part of the contract as well, with the holds and the belay systems. They also install safety floor padding. And then the contract also includes the allotment of the harnesses and the climbing equipment that is needed for the students to participate in this athletic club. Next slide. So in closing, this is a very exciting experience, a very exciting contract for Great Path to have. They worked really hard with the athletic department as well as the choice department and with Manchester to get approval to have the wall on site so that the students could now they won't have to travel to a club. They could actually participate right there in their own facility, and they can really start to experience the competitive opportunities as well as be a part of varsity sports. And they're hoping to increase the student engagement and enrollment with the actual wall on site. And then the next slide just has some pictures of the students currently participating in the athletic club. And that would be our last slide.
Board Member Darcel Ledger, if you're speaking, you are on mute.
Oh, thank you so much. I apologize. Thank you for that presentation. I'm going to see if I have any hands up for any questions. And Board Member Wilson has a question. Board Member Wilson, it's you have the
Thank you. Quick question just for my own education. I think this is a great idea and great for the students. Could someone explain to me how what would be approving here now is the building of the wall? But give me an idea on what it takes to with the upkeep of the wall, wear and tear, mats. Does anyone have like an idea of what that sort of looks like on a year-to-year basis? And is there a major cost associated with it?
Actually, I can help with that. Great question. So I've been at SMSA since the new building was built in 2008, 2009, and we have a climbing wall there. And since then, we haven't needed any maintenance whatsoever on it. They're made very durable. The only thing that you can do, and what we do on our own, you can move the handholds all around, so you can kind of have different paths to go up and down the wall. And as far as in the mats, we actually, with the company we went with, was able to have it. I don't know if you've seen that picture. You see those mats above there, the thicker ones behind the kids. We actually went with the 12-inch crash mats, and they made them specially so that they actually flip up to the wall, so that they anchor to the wall when the wall's not being used, so that it protects the wall, and it also protects the gym. If there's other things going on in the gym, nobody can get onto the wall, or hit into the wall with anything. The mats will be there to protect it. So yeah, the wear and tear, like I said, knock on wood, it's been almost 15 years, and we haven't had to have any upkeep with the wall at all.
Perfect. One follow-up question. The kids competing, do they always compete and practice with a harness attached, or is it sort of, novice level up to advanced where they don't necessarily use a harness?
Good question too. So there are two types of climbing. There's also bouldering. So bouldering are the big ones where they kind of have to climb around them, where they're not harnessed, but they don't go more than 5 feet off the ground for those. That's why we have the big crash mats for those. So they don't go up high on the bouldering ones. They only, when they do the lead climbing, they would have the safety harnesses and the ropes. But we also got the auto belays, which is another safety factor that follows in. So a kid doesn't even need somebody down below necessarily, but we would always have, but it also has the protection with the auto belay that will be installed at the top of each of the rows of climbing that they do have. And as far as competition goes, we're not there yet. Our kids are still, learning how to do it, and they're very, very novice at it right now. But they do have regional, and that's our goal, is to get them involved in the regional competitions. They're in Massachusetts, Rhode Island. There's some in Connecticut. So, and now that it's an Olympic sport, it's starting to grow and it's becoming a lot more popular.
Thank you. Perfect.
If I, excuse me, if I could share, I'd love to just talk a little bit about a testimonial from one of the advisors on the current climbing club that we've been doing. Is that okay? Okay, great. So one of my social workers, Mr. Gagir, has been doing this club advising for the rock climbing club, and he shared with me his testimonial from the work that's currently been going on the last few weeks. He says the GPA Climbing Club has been an invigorating breath of fresh air for our school community, and the positive outcomes cannot be overstated. The students who have joined this community have all stated that participating in the club is one of the highlights of their week. Side note, they're currently there right now and coming back in about 15 minutes. Climbing is a sport that has some serious physical benefits and engages almost every muscle group, improving strength, flexibility, and coordination. It also balances fine motor skill. Rock climbing challenges young climbers mentally and encourages problem solving and critical thinking, as climbers must figure out the best routes to take and adapt to different obstacles. The positive outcomes have been astounding as well. The club has fostered one of the most welcoming and accepting cultures I have experienced, where the students are free and comfortable to be who they want to be. In the few short weeks that this club has been running, we have formed strong bonds through teamwork and shared experiences. This has created a supportive environment where the students encourage one another, celebrate achievements, and work together to overcome challenges. This sense of belonging is crucial for personal development and can improve self-esteem and social skills. They have been so supportive of each other as they navigate the difficult task of climbing, overcoming challenges, and just being teenagers in this world. I am honored to have the opportunity to coach this club and hope to see it continue and grow for years to come. And I share that because I do think it speaks volumes to what's currently been happening with the climbing club between the students who are involved and the advisors. And it's definitely been a positive effect for our school overall the past few weeks to enhance our culture and climate.
Okay, thank you so much. And I did see that Chair Hockenhull had her hand up, but she did put it down. So let me just make sure that no one else has a question. And so I believe we are all set. Thank you so much for that presentation. And Christina, can you please pull up the agenda again? And our next, agenda item is grading committee update. And our,
Sorry, actually, it's the acceptance of funds for DOMIS.
okay, let me see. Okay, I'm sorry. Acceptance of funds, State Department of Education for Domus Kids Incorporated. And I will pass that on to Joanne Tremblay Jackson.
Yes, good evening. This is money that is allocated from the federal government to the State Department of Education, and then they in turn divide it up between the 2 juvenile detention facilities in the state of Connecticut. So the amount fluctuates from year to year. And so this year, as you see, we have 62,024, I believe. And what we're requesting is that we be allowed to accept these funds. We're at the pass-through because we have to apply as the we're in charge of all educational facilities, including the school at the detention center, but we subcontract with Domus to run the school for us. So we'd like to pass this money on to Domus to utilize. They were involved in the writing of what is needed, and it's all in support of teaching and learning and making sure that we have updated equipment and updated professional development for the staff so that they have the technology and the resources to use with our young people that are have school sometimes for a day, sometimes for a couple months at the Juvenile Detention Center. And Mike McGuire is with us as well if there are questions.
Board Member Darisaw Ledger, you're on mute if you are speaking, and Board Member Tatum does have his hand up if you'd like him to.
Okay, yes. I
Okay.
apologize. Yes, Board Member Tatum, you have the floor. Board Member
Thank
Tatum.
you. And
Okay, there you are.
yep. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. McGuire, for being with us this evening. Just for our information or my information, I would love to hear you briefly describe the educational program that exists in the juvenile detention facility that you run.
Okay, I'll do my best to give you a snapshot of what we do and how we do it. So, our one of our key objectives is to make the experience for the students as transparent and as normal, if you will, as it would be if they were home at their original school of residence. And so our staff consists of certified teachers in English language arts, in social studies, in mathematics, in science, in physical education and health. And we also have electives in art, and in music, and most recently in career and technical education. And so, in addition, the school employs a social worker who's also a certified MSW, and we have a special education teacher. Our principal is also certified with the 092 distinction as a certified administrator. I'm also a certified administrator. And so it's as regular a school as it can be, given the population of kids. And so the kids are basically in, if I can, in three cohorts. There is the pre-adjudicated kids who simply have been arrested and are here until either there's a disposition on their case, which could be in 24 hours. It could be in a week. It could be a couple of weeks. Or they're waiting for a placement, a more permanent placement. So there's that cohort. The second cohort would be a more permanent student body. That's about 12 students, and they're called Regions students. That's an acronym, which means, reentry and educational services for them on a longer term basis. And so the Regions students are there for at least a year. And there's a waiting list for some folks to get in there. And then the third cohort that we have is young ladies. So our counterpart in Bridgeport, they do not have facilities for ladies. And so we have all of the females who have been arrested and who are either awaiting disposition and or awaiting placement at a more permanent facility. Our school day is similar to the school days at the comprehensive public schools, excepting that we start slightly later. We start at 8:45, and we do that because our kids need to get meds, and our traffic flow is a little different than it would be in a normal public school. The kids travel by units, and sometimes those units are even broken down further into smaller cohorts, depending upon what's going on in the environment. And then lastly, I would say this, one of the differences between our school and Hartford Public Schools, Hartford High School, or Buckley, is that we have a juvenile detention officer in each classroom for safety purposes. Does that describe would you like?
Yes, thank you very much for that summary. I spent some time in college tutoring in a juvenile detention facility, and I also took a course with a professor who was teaching a course in a medium security prison when I was in college, and so it's always like an aspect of the education system that I'm fascinated by. So thank you for giving us a snapshot.
And you can come by whenever you'd like, and we'll give you a tour if you want to see it firsthand.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Board Member Tatum, you're good? Okay, thank you. And I would actually love a tour at some point. And thank you for what you are doing. And I believe, thank you for your presentation. Christina, can you please pull up the agenda again? Thank you so much. And our next agenda item, thank you for the arrow, I see the arrow, is the grading committee update. And we have, Assistant Super Daisy Torres Hill.
Thank you, Board Member Darcel Ledger.
You're very welcome.
Thank you so much. Okay, tonight I will be sharing an update on the work of our Hartford Grading Steering Committee. I will also present proposed changes to the capstone requirement. Next slide, please. Thank you. Aligned to our district strategies and enabling systemic practices, we will focus on strategies for student success and equitable access to high quality learning experiences. Next slide. The Hartford Grading Steering Committee was established to review our current grading practices and ensure a fair and consistent grading system for all students. Our main objective is to define and develop consistent grading practices across all schools. We are actively participating in learning about research-based equitable grading practices to ground our work, and we are also engaging various stakeholders in gathering feedback. This includes students, teachers, support staff, parents, school leaders, and district and union leadership. Ultimately, we will provide recommendations that will inform policy changes. Here, you will also see our meeting committee dates. Next slide. This committee is comprised of a diverse group of about 15 members. Leaders from the elementary, middle, and high school, teachers, parents, students, district leadership, and we are also partnering with Partners for Educational Leadership in this work. The committee will meet for 5 3-hour sessions during the months of February, March, April, and May. Our starting point is understanding why we grade in the first place and how our grading practices align with our vision for equity. Each session topic builds off the previous, with our final session ending with a set of recommendations, plans for implementation, and next steps. I will dive a little bit deeper into topics in a couple of exercises. Next slide, please. Here I will provide historical context and our why. Survey and data on grading identified key issues that emerged as focus areas. First, inconsistent practices between schools. Disconnect between grades and assessment outcomes, and varied understanding in the purpose of grading. A little bit about our historical context in this work. Grading has evolved over the years in our district. One example is our partnership with CT Rise, which began in 2021 with one of our high schools participating in an equitable grading collaborative with other high schools across the state. Later that year, District and school leaders also engaged in Joe Feldman's Grading for Equity book study, and a work group was established to develop equitable grading practices. Most recently, in 2023, a district committee revisited the work to establish a district grading guidance document. Our goals for this committee is not only deepening our understanding of equitable grading practices through professional learning, but also to ensure wider stakeholder engagement in the process. We seek to have consistent grading practices across all schools aligned to research and board policy. Next slide, please. Our work is grounded in 3 pillars of grading, as highlighted in Grading for Equity by Joe Feldman. The first pillar, accuracy, describes how grades must provide a clear, fair, and meaningful representation of what students know and can do, free of misleading factors like behavior or other non-academic criteria. The second pillar, bias resistant, emphasizes how grading practices should be designed to minimize implicit bias and subjective judgment, ensuring fairness and equity for all students. The third, motivational, engages students deeply in their learning, fostering intrinsic motivation and a growth mindset. Next slide, please. This quote by Thomas Guskey underscores the importance and the purpose of grading. The first step in any successful grading reform effort is reaching consensus on the primary purpose of grades and report cards. Next slide, please. What do our students think about our current grading practices? It was critical for us to hear directly from our students. Through survey data and student participation in our sessions, we are intentionally keeping student voice at the forefront of this committee's work. Here, you can see responses from students in various grades. Each of these quotes highlight how our students are experiencing our current grading system. Just going to give you a moment to take a look at that. Next slide, please. Thank you. The next few slides will just provide a closer look at our session topics as we dive deeper into the work. Session 1, which already happened, we kicked off looking at the historical context of grading and its connection to current HBS practices. We considered integrity and equity in grading and the implications for our work. We also started drafting a grading purpose statement. Next slide. In our second session, we reviewed district and survey data to identify inconsistencies in grading and their impact on students. We also examined how unconscious bias and began digging into how non-academic factors impact grading and how we can support this work. We revisited the grading purpose statement and made adjustments based on this statement. And let's see. So what's next? We are about halfway through our sessions. We have 3 to go. And so I wanted you to take a look at some of the topics that we are thinking through. For session 3, building bias-resistant systems, we will focus on the impact of implicit bias and subjective judgment in grading practices and look at non-academic factors a little bit more deeply. We will continue to engage our stakeholders throughout the process, so learning does not stay with just the committee. Committee members are sharing information, gathering feedback, and conducting focus groups to gather additional input. As we continue with our sessions, we are continuing our additional outreach with student focus groups and engaging our advisory committees. Session 4 will focus on grading practices. Here we will explore student agency, growth, mindset, and intrinsic motivation through them. And finally, in our last session, as we mentioned earlier, implementation planning and next steps. We will develop recommendations and think about both thoughts. Next slide. Let me go. I thought the last of that was not shouldn't be. Yep. Right. There should be the capstone pieces. Yep. There we go. Thank you. I'm gonna move right into capstone, and then we'll do questions for you. Right. Thank you so much. So now I will provide an overview of recent changes to the capstone requirement as a result of Connecticut legislation. Connecticut law changed to make the 1 credit mastery-based diploma and assessment, or what we know as capstone, optional for high school graduation beginning with the class of 2023. As a result, we are seeking to revise our current policy to reflect this change. By making the capstone optional, the law reduces the state prescribed credit requirements from 22 to 21, thereby increasing the potential credits available for electives. The purpose of a capstone is an opportunity for students to apply curriculum knowledge and skills through a project, portfolio, internship, service learning, or other demonstration of mastery in an area of particular interest to the student. We have been actively soliciting feedback from school leaders, students, teachers and support staff, and senior leadership on the proposed changes. Now we will bring this to our policy committee for review and approval. Next slide, please. This slide shows a visual of what this means for an existing Hartford Public School student. The green shows the graduation requirements for our current juniors and seniors for the classes of 2025 and 2026. This capstone still remains required for students. We will phase out the capstone standalone class after the school year. Next year's seniors will be provided a capstone experience in an open elective connected to their interests or career pathway. Students will earn their one mastery-based capstone credit through this elective course. The orange side shows what this change will mean for our current freshmen and sophomores, or our classes of 2027 and 2028. These students will be able to select an elective course with an embedded capstone experience included and earn elective credit. By making the capstone optional, students now have more opportunity to choose elective courses that align with their personal interests, academic goals, and future career aspirations. The shift also increases opportunities for students to explore areas such as advanced coursework, career and tech pathways, and these changes also support student survey feedback data that highlighted that these changes will actually reduce stress, provide more choice in learning, and more time for courses of interest. Next slide. Okay, and at this time, we gave you two big pieces, right, with grading and with capstone. And so now we are opening it up to questions from the board members.
Thank you so much for both of those presentations combined into one. Lots of information, lots to take in. I have one question with regards to the first presentation, part one, if you will. How did you recruit parents? And with regards to the parents, what were, like, was there a diverse group of parents rather? So did you look at socioeconomic status or just interest? How were they selected?
Yes, thank you. Well, we did definitely partner with our team here on strategic partnerships and family and community. And we actually sent out a parent survey out to all of our parents to explain the purpose of the committee and also the dates. And I think the dates were critical and the time commitment. So we did have several families reply back, and we were in communication with how can I still stay engaged with the work? I just can't commit to that time. So we were able to get 3 parents who came on board. And ironically, one definitely represents elementary, one like a pre-K-8, and then a high school. So we had a nice representation in terms of our selection. So when we were thinking about it, we wanted to be mindful of the balance between neighborhood schools, magnet schools, elementary, middle, and high, right? Understanding zones. Like we were really at a district level, really being intentional about who was on the committee. so that we had diverse race in that presentation.
Great, thank you so much. And so going to the other presentation, a question about that. With regards to the grading, you know, looking at different grading models, did you look at, and I always have to talk about Montessori, did you have an opportunity to look at Montessori and see how the stress is actually kind of like reduced or eliminated, if you will, when the students have choice and they are not put under such time constraints with regards to the work that they're doing and their interests in exploration?
Hey, can I ask that question? Are you referring to the grading or the capstone?
Actually, to the grading.
Okay. Yes, so we are actually digging into that now. We actually have a committee meeting tomorrow where we're really digging into some of the really looking at gradebook and how gradebook is set up and really examining some of the factors to grading. And so while we're not looking at like standard base grading versus traditional grading in terms of that, we are really digging into how students are being graded and what teachers are looking at. One piece that we're bringing back is, you know, looking at our different models. So yes, we have Montessori. We also have a dual language academy in the district. And so we want to make sure that those pieces are brought into the conversation. So tomorrow's committee is one where that conversation, we're going to dig a little bit more deeply, but also making sure that whatever practices that we land on are reflected and are consistent across all of the schools that have these different types of you know, programmatic pieces that we need to be mindful of. So although we haven't dug into up till session 2 into Montessori, it is on radar as well as Blue.
Great, thank you so much. And let me just, oh, I have 2 hands up. I will call on Board Chair Hockenhull. You have the floor.
Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Torres-Hill, for your presentation. I just have a couple of questions. First, I just want to understand, so we're not voting on anything right now. This is just an update, and then we will be voting on something later on, I assume, at some point in time, like a policy thing.
Yes, so there are 2 pieces to this. So thank you so we can clarify, right? So yes, today is just to give you an update. We thought it was important at this point in our work with the grading committee. We're like slightly within halfway in session 2. We have a couple, we're up to session, you know, we go to session 5. And so the idea was give you sort of where we are, where's the lay of the land in terms of that work, with the goal of going to committee in May for grading, right? With our recommendations and going through that process. Capstone, the second presentation, we wanted to provide the changes, which is now aligning to legislation, but that will go down. Now you guys are hearing, right, what the changes are, you're asking questions, and then that will go to policy at the next policy meeting, which I want to say is next week for first reading.
Thank you for that. Appreciate that. And then, so when we do have to vote on something, will we be presented with kind of what we, like a current state and a new state to show what's changing? Is that the plan, or is there other ways that we'll learn that information?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Great. Okay, great. Thank you. And then my other question is on capstone information that you shared. So it looked like you had 17 teachers that were capstone teachers. Is that all they did was capstone, and now they'll be kind of repurposed to do other things, or were they, how did those capstone teachers work, I guess, and what will happen going forward?
Right. I'm going to actually, because I know that she's been doing amazing work in the district, so I'm going to tap on my director, Tracy Avicoli, to talk a little bit more about the capstone course.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Torres-Hill. So thank you for the question. We do currently have about 17 teachers who are slated as teaching the capstone course. And that includes a variety of teaching assignments, and certifications. So any teacher, any certified teacher can technically teach that capstone course. It is an elective. And with that, we have some of those teachers who, yes, were teaching capstone as sort of their full-time caseload or a course load. And then we also have some other teachers who were teaching part of capstone as part of their courses on their list. So we believe that this will be twofold. One, to allow teachers to sort of continue with their core content areas and their certifications so that we can best utilize their expertise in their contents and provide our students with greater flexibility and autonomy in choice aligned with their interests and goals. So that's currently sort of where we are with those teachers.
Great, thank you. I'm all set, thanks.
Thank you so much. And Board Member Tatum, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'll stick with capstone first, and then I'll circle back to the grading. And I think Ms. Avicoli will probably be in the best position to answer this. My question was about that new elective course that will have what if I read the slide correctly, have either like a capstone element or a mastery-based like assessment that would be built in that is still credit. Like there's still kind of a separate credit, it looked like, for that capstone in the new system. Was I reading that correctly? There's that detailed question, but then also just more broadly.
It is a little confusing. So understandably, especially for the seniors next year. So thank you, Christina, for pulling that up. If you want to go back to the slide that has the green and the orange, it might help to just illustrate a little bit better, and then I can speak to that. Yeah, perfect. So on the left side, the green side, that's we intentionally left that 1.0 visible, the credit, because our seniors next year will still receive that credit on their transcript. However, they will not be enrolled in a standalone capstone course. They will be able to choose from a plethora. We have a long list of courses that we have that are already Hartford Public Schools vetted courses, elective courses, aligned to our themes and pathways that already have a project component inside them, that already potentially have a performance-based component that demonstrates mastery inside of them, or a real-world experience. So for instance, I'm looking at on my other screen one of our ELA electives, our English electives, called Communicating in the Real World. So this is an elective that is currently any student can choose, would typically be taken in like a senior or a junior level time period. And the curriculum supports writing a resume, professional communication, how to write an email. And then the last sort of component of their experience is a portfolio and a persuasive task. So something that will, that is almost like the capstone that is happening now. So how are you becoming an active citizen to be part of your world and different ways to communicate in your world? So that's just one experience, like one example of a current elective course that has a capstone-like component to it. So that's the shift. So next year, our students will be working with our school counselors to guide them to choose a course that we have now tagged as a capstone course because of the curricula and the programming that is already embedded and aligned to that content and is placed at the upper end of our high school experience. So typically the courses that are tagged are those like part 2. If it's a communicating in the real world 1 or 2, I would choose 2 to be the capstone course, because then you're more likely to demonstrate your mastery in the second course of the trajectory. So that's sort of the idea, or the way that this will shake out for the subsequent years. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm realizing part of my confusion was I was reading the green where it says classes of 2023 and beyond.
Yes, I
But
know.
that's actually just 2023 to 2020.
You're absolutely right. I should change that.
Okay.
I need to change that text. So thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah.
And then The other side,
my last question about
ahead.
that, the 4 credits of that open elective, I think you might have just answered it at the end. Is
That's
it 2 courses? Is it one course that has the embedded sort of extra credit of this capstone piece
Yep.
to it?
It's however, whatever course, so that then we embedded that 1.0 in, so then we did that intentionally. So you can see that the electives boosted up because the capstone experience is now just embedded into the electives, into the open elective bucket. So, so that will now not show up as a separate credit attained on their transcript. It will just show up as an experience in sort of like how they have to, all of our students are required to complete the FAFSA in order to graduate. So it's sort of just a task completion instead of a credit requirement moving forward. And that will be captured for us. We've already started to work with our data and accountability system department and our school counselors to determine the best way to capture that so that we ensure that students are graduating with that experience in hand.
Okay, I'm catching up. Thank you. Thank you for all that clarification.
No problem.
I think I'm good on that now.
Great.
Back over to the grading committee. I guess I'm curious, like what, and I know that this hasn't happened yet, but I'm curious what sort of level of recommendations or implementation of your recommendations you're considering. And for example, right, like you mentioned that you're looking at standards-based versus traditional grading, or maybe not looking at standards-based versus traditional grading. Like that is one sort of big consequential sort of policy decision that could be made. And there's lots of ways of like kind of living in both worlds between standards-based and more traditional alphanumeric grades. And then everywhere down to policies that much more sort of get into like how teachers construct their grade books, what types of assignments. Like, could you just say a little bit more, I guess, about like what level of scale you're considering in terms of the recommendations that you're making?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that. And, you know, as I noted in the presentation, this is work we have established, right? And we've been trying to get scaled in our district over the last few years. You know, we had COVID, we had a lot of reasons why it just did not happen. And one of the things that we notice in sort of our, you know, our data analysis is just the inconsistencies of grading practices across schools, right? And that is something that was critical. And so as one big piece that we want to take away from this group in step one, I see this as not just stopping in May. I do not see the steering committee's work being done, right? I do think there's more to dig in here. I do think this is step one, and where we ground ourselves on, you know, our mission, our vision, understanding the purpose statement. I mentioned that a couple of times because it's the purpose of grading that will get us to those pieces that you mentioned, Board Member Tatum, which is really understanding the standards and traditional and getting into some of those weeds. We have to start there and ground ourselves. What are the evidence-based practices? What do we believe, right? How do we norm on that? How do we continue to make sure that folks are centered there? And then our recommendations are really about getting centered about those consistent grading practices where we're naming, right? That we are looking at what students can and should be able to demonstrate versus behaviors, like teasing out, right? Those non-academic factors that I mentioned in the presentation. I think that, you know, we are very intentional about in our session one about that being an outcome. And we don't have to start from zero. I mentioned that we had some really great district work that happened, you know, in 2023, 2021. And so we do have like a guidance document that starts to name a lot of the points that we're trying to hit on and really getting intentional about, you know, student, you know, the behaviors that we're looking to tease out versus what students can actually, right, like the habits of work and understanding academic performance. And so, you know, practices we're looking to apply, practices we're looking to avoid, you know, making sure that we're normed and that this is our grading, you know, stance, if you will, across all schools. And then from that, I see us evolving to digging into more, into, you know, the traditional, maybe the standards-based, really digging deep. But I think for this initial piece, there's just some pieces here that are very inconsistent. And as we're thinking about course selections and thinking about, you know, how we're offering, you know, choice to students, there's just like one of the things that really stood out for me was the student data, like what the students were saying about how they're experiencing grading. You know, so there's a sense of urgency right now to really like level set on what we believe to be equitable grading practices across our schools. I hope that makes sense and answered your question.
Yeah, I heard a lot in there that clarified sort of where this sits in the enormous conversation about what grades are for and how to use them. So I look forward to hearing, you know, more from the last 3 sessions of the committee and then going on. I think grades are where you can really like where the rubber hits the road in a lot of ways for a lot. But it does so in sometimes sneaky or hidden ways because we're so accustomed to the way things are. So I appreciate the time that you and your team are dedicating to it. It's a very important issue and could really have pretty dramatic implications for what teaching and learning looks like in the district. So thank you for giving it a lot of thought.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you so much for that. I wanted to like also say that motivation is important on both receiving and delivery, because teachers have to be motivated. Teachers have to be excited or should be excited in their, you know, with the content so that the delivery is received, you know, with energy. I think, and also looking at the hook, finding what interests, you know, what is really interesting to the student, what, you know, what excites the student so that there can be engagement, so the students can be all in. That's also very important. So I'm really excited to see where this is going and looking forward to hearing more.
Thank you so much. I do appreciate all the comments and support. We're excited about them as well.
Yeah, this is very exciting. And I believe that, oh, let me just make sure I don't see any more hands. So I believe that concludes our Teaching and Learning Committee meeting. So thank you for all of the presentations and everyone